don't need to tell you that generative AI is a very touchy subject in the art community. It seems like every week another artist is getting accused of using AI or flat out admitting that they do use it in their workflow, i.e. the whole ErgoJosh situation from a few weeks back. Even certain brands like Ohuhu and Procreate are expressing their disillusionment regarding AI art. Again, it's a pretty messy situation, and rightfully so, as it hurts artists both financially and emotionally seeing their artwork being stolen by these programs. In fact, I already touched on that in a previous video, but instead of talking about why AI itself is bad, I'm going to talk about whether or not it should be used as a tool in art. Hello, I'm Ayasuna and I make videos, more specifically art videos, but I also stream now on Twitch at twitch.tv/Ayasuna19. Link will be down in the description below. In fact, this footage here in this video is actually from my last live stream on Twitch. For now, I mainly do art streams, but I am trying to transition into variety stuff. In fact, I am planning to do some horror games in the month of October. So if you're into that, then don't hesitate to check the link down in the description. Also, my other socials are linked if you're interested in that as well. Chilling aside, I did want to talk about the process of making art and whether or not AI can or should be used as a tool. Let me be clear that the tools an artist has at their disposal doesn't make them any more or less of an artist. You work with what you have, whether that's a lined notebook or the fanciest paper that money can buy. That doesn't determine the skill of an artist. In my opinion, to be a good artist, you do need to think about how you use the tools that you have. And that doesn't just include art supplies. It can include things like references, tutorials, and even how you hold your drawing tool of choice. In a way, your body itself can be a tool in art in achieving certain results. Good posture and how you grip your pen or pencil will go a long way in longevity and can affect your overall drawing. So if you're listening to this while you draw, please make sure to sit up straight and loosen that grip of yours. Trust me, I've gone through a lot of back pain and tendinitis to learn the error of my ways. The whole point of that is that artists use tools, and that has been the case for all of art history. Whether that's a random stick, an easel, a camera obscura, and now the use of certain internet platforms, what is so different with AI? Can't that be a tool used in the artistic process? That's a very, very complicated answer, and there's numerous opinions on that topic. Some think that AI tools can be useful to enhance artwork, whether that's a generative fill tool or a color corrector, both things that are found in Photoshop as well as other art programs. Others think that using AI is simply a lazy shortcut. Personally, I don't feel comfortable supporting a brand that uses generative AI in their creative process. It is unethical and quite literally theft to take quote-unquote inspiration from another artist without giving them credit. Lately, it's been in a gray area regarding copyright because it takes inspiration from established franchises and IPs, as well as taking from artists who have passed away, Akira Toriyama being one of those examples. Not to mention bigger brands like Photoshop as well as Instagram taking inspiration from other artists. It is also a gray area because some artists are under NDAs. They may be able to share their artwork on social media, but if it gets scrapped by AI, that could seriously hurt their own livelihoods, not just from commissions themselves, but also working with other brands. Now, the latter that I've seen is mostly in the graphic design world, but the same thing likely can and will happen to artists. That doesn't even include the physical and mental toll of generative AI in regards to making not safe for work pictures of people, some even as young as children. While I can't speak for other countries, I know the US is quite slow when it comes to adapting to technology, so there really isn't any safeguards in place to regulate AI, more specifically generative AI. Not to get too political, it definitely doesn't help when some of our own Congress people don't know how to send a text message. And they're supposed to be trusted to regulate AI if they don't really understand what it is. Like I said, generative AI is generally harmful to pretty much anyone, even those outside of the whole art world. But not necessarily all AI are created equally. But, and this is a huge but, some versions of AI can actually be really useful. Like I said, many artists and designers do use color correctors in their artwork as a finishing touch. I know I used to use filters whenever I would publish my own traditional artwork. Most can understand that nothing of harm happened or is stolen when you use a color corrector to change the hues or the saturation of a piece. Also, if you've been on the online art community, you've likely seen artists who have used random prompt generators. Again, I have used them a few times in my own art journey. I think it's actually fun if you want to draw a character or a scene and you don't know what. My favorite art prompt sites are artprompts.com and perchance.org, both of which have prompts created by users. The only AI tool here is the randomizer, which was made from code which is also made by humans. Also, both sites regularly feature human-made art. Again, this is not the same thing as generative AI. While these tools can definitely be helpful in boosting creativity, I haven't felt the need to use them in a while because I don't want to turn them into a crutch. And I think that's exactly what happened in the whole ErgoJosh situation, and with a lot of artists who use generative AI in their process. I've seen some arguments online that AI actually helps with coming up with color palettes and thumbnails, but I don't necessarily buy that. On Pinterest and Google alone, there are tons of user-generated color palettes. And for those who do have a Photoshop subscription, there is also Adobe Colors, which also has user-generated color palettes. A free alternative to Adobe Colors is colorhex.com, which also has user-generated palettes. Even as a beginner, you don't necessarily have to go that much out of your way if you want to experiment with different colors, and you don't have to resort to generative AI. Related to that, I've seen others say that AI helps them with color theory, and to be honest, I also think this opinion is sort of BS. In my view, if you're a beginner artist, I don't think it's necessary to learn color theory right away. If you're just starting out, I think it's better to learn values instead. Honestly, this is something that I could use some more studying with. And you can see me do that live at twitch.tv/iasuna19. I think another stream idea that I have is that I take 2 hours to learn something or study a part of art that I'm not really comfortable with. It keeps me organized and I might actually feel more disciplined enough to actually learn these things. But that's just another idea that I had, and I saw the opportunity to plug my channel again, so I took it. I'm shameless. Back to the topic at hand though. I think using crutches like these sort of slow artists' development. And that's part of the reason why I think that younger artists should start their journey with traditional art instead. While digital art is really fun, I think you can sometimes overcorrect yourself and edit out all the mistakes that you make. If you don't understand how or why you made those mistakes, you're just bound to keep repeating them. Bad habits start to form and it's really hard to unlearn those. I actually think that sometimes you're at your most creative when you have limitations with the tools that you work with. But if you disagree with this take, then let me know down in the comments. With traditional art, you can't really rely on AI as a crutch, unless you happen to use a filter on your phone to act as a color corrector. As far as color mixing is concerned, a lot of it you kind of have to figure out on your own if you're using paints or pencils. While it definitely takes a lot of trial and error, these are skills that will stick with you. And personally, in a world where everything is super digital, as you can see here, it's sometimes nice to just open a sketchbook and start working. For me, making something with my very own hands is quite rewarding. Basically, I think that using generative AI in your artwork does make you a bit lazy. If you have something constantly available at your fingertips, you will eventually cut corners, instead of learning how to do something on your own. And this doesn't necessarily just have to apply to art, it also applies to other aspects in life as well. As I mentioned to a friend, being an artist is being a researcher. In a way, it's kind of like being a problem solver. Your first sketch is probably going to look a lot different than your final piece, and that's okay. For instance, in my live stream the other day, I was coming up with designs for my banner of my website that I want to release soon. I did a few sketches of thumbnails of ideas that I had, and I know that a lot of them turned out quite crappy. And while I know they all are far from being the final piece, they did help me get inspiration for what I want my final piece to look like. Not only did I have to think about the design itself, I had to make sure that it would fit in the dimensions of a website banner, and it not looking like a disgruntled, jumbled mess. I knew I wanted my banner to look nice and crisp, so I had to think about what resolution that I wanted the final piece to be in, as well as what size canvas that I wanted to use. These are all things that you likely will need to consider if you're working on projects yourself or if you're going to work for another client. While it would be easy just to tell AI what to do and come up with a quote-unquote generative picture, I wanted to learn how to do this myself. I kind of want to make graphic design my career, so this website is a way to test my skills. While everything won't be 100% perfect, I at least know that I did my best, and I tried to make it the closest to the way that I wanted. I learned something that I could take with me down the road if I ever want to upgrade my website or work on other people's websites. If I had used AI, I wouldn't have learned about the margins of a website banner, and that would have likely stand me if I ever wanted to work on other projects. I think what most people get wrong about generative AI is that they're thinking that they're using it as a tool, but really you're just outsourcing your work. Why would you take the time to learn color theory if the AI can do it for you? In fact, why would you even learn how to draw at all if you can just use AI to do shortcuts? It makes art something that's supposed to be expressive into something that's made for commercial purposes only. The fun of art is actually making the art, and of course you're not going to enjoy every step of it, but if you don't learn how to do it a certain way, then it will definitely harm your overall enjoyment. As I mentioned previously, I think a lot of younger artists, even some professionals, get used to instant gratification. Partly due to social media and pressures from the algorithm to change your artwork, but part of it too is stemming from perfectionism. I mean, think about it, art can and should be made by humans, and part of that means that there's going to be some flaws. Even professional artists still make mistakes sometimes. Sometimes those flaws can actually make a piece feel more alive in some cases. Professional artists also go through art block just like the rest of us. And even after years of practice, they might not be proud of every single sketch that they do. But the fact that being an artist just means that you're constantly learning how to deal with changes. I often heard in relation to AI art that it's adapt or die for artists, but I actually think it's quite the opposite. Fundamentally speaking, art is a celebration of our backgrounds, whether that's our cultural upbringing or just the favorite memes that we consume. We often feel quite passionate about what we like, so that tends to show in our own artwork. You can teach an AI perfect color theory, but you can't exactly teach it passion. I mean, a machine can't exactly replicate human emotions, no matter what actual prompts you use to create an image. Not to get too philosophical here, I don't think that any AI will actually come out that can replicate the human experience, or human condition rather. That, of course, is a common thing in sci-fi, and many artists have toyed with this theme before in their own artwork. I mean, obviously, AI can and should be regulated. I don't think that there's much argument in that area. But I also think that we need to look inward into our own artwork to see how we can change and adapt to these changes. I mean, we artists are also people. We're going to have ups and downs, days where we really can't stop drawing, and months where we don't even want to look at a pencil. I've I've said it once, I'll say it again. Art really isn't the subject of choice that you want to pick if you're expecting to get popular quickly. There are really no shortcuts in becoming a great artist. It takes a lot of trial and error. You're gonna have to study and do things that you don't want, but that doesn't mean it can't be fun either. I don't think it's right to constantly witch hunt on artists and accuse them of using AI. I think that doesn't really lead to anywhere good. I mean, it's obviously bad if someone is trying to pass off someone else's work as their own. I already touched on that before as well. But more likely than not, it often comes across as bullying and harassment, and it's usually uncalled for. I think there are better ways to advocate against AI art than harassing artists. I would argue it's much better to go after these corporations that use AI as part of their creative process. Like Photoshop, for instance, or Wacom, like I mentioned again in a previous video. I think in the ErgoJosh situation, he himself admitted that he was feeling a bit burnt out by art. It's not like he didn't have the skills to do what he needed to do for his illustration, but I think he lacked the inspiration to actually do it. He looked for a shortcut in his problem, and that obviously led to AI. While I don't necessarily agree that there's any ethical use of AI, he was actually quite forthcoming about why he did it. And that's obviously quite different than those trying to use AI art to make a quick buck. I don't genuinely believe that he was trying to rip off another artist in this instance, and nor was that the intention of his video. That said, his method of going about it certainly wasn't the best, and obviously that got a lot of people upset at him for it. Art itself takes a lot of hard work and effort. You aren't always going to feel like doing it, but that's okay. In terms of editing and coming up with ideas, AI can actually be useful in art. Like I said, the generative fill tool and the color corrector are two examples of this, and both are something that both artists and graphic designers use regularly. There's also the art prompt generators that I mentioned before, and that's also different than the AI that I'm talking about. But as far as using AI art as a reference, that's where things get a bit crazy. AI tech bros want to say that all art is technically stolen, but a lot of what we reference is from real life. The only reason why generative AI even exists is for profit, and it comes off the back of other people's hard work. While I obviously don't know all of ErgoJosh's story as an artist, I do think his own confidence in his art has taken a hit, and this situation definitely didn't help with that. But the issue isn't just with him. I see this a lot, especially with younger artists. Even myself, I constantly doubt my own artistic abilities. I mean, here I'm pretty much scribbling on my canvas because I was half asleep and I was still quite new to digital art. Even as seasoned artists, confidence comes and goes, depending on whatever goes on in your own life. That, of course, goes without saying. Even if artists are given the consent to have their art scrapped for AI, I still don't think it's actually the most ethical thing to do. I think a lot of crucial media will be lost if we turn to AI for everything. Art itself is part of the human experience. We shouldn't let AI dictate all parts of that process. While it's obviously understandable in being disappointed in ErgoJosh's decision here, I don't think harassing him really helps in this situation. The product that he used was unethical, and it did come at the cost of scraping art from actual artists. If you have it in your head to want to learn how to do or draw something, then you won't necessarily jump to AI to solve it. Him doubling down on the whole situation, of course, also made things worse. If professional artists feel the need to do this to their own artwork, what does that say about everyone else? Where do the rest of us fit in that equation? And what is the future of the art industry in light of AI? But that's just my take. If you have a differing take than mine, then please let me know down in the comments below. If you want to see me ramble about AI for another 20 minutes or other similar content, then don't hesitate to drop a like and subscribe to my channel. I know my uploading schedule hasn't exactly been the most consistent, but again, I'm still trying to work that all out. My goal is to release a new video every week and stream at least twice a week, but life changes, so again, I may not be the most consistent all the time, but that is my plan for now at least. So until my next video or live stream, take care. Bye.